Welcome, I'm immortalized to another round of the book recaps. My name is Kyrin, and this is the section where I go over the books that were read in the previous month, that being May 2022 for today, and add some additional commentary, insights, things that I didn't really felt jumped right into the book reviews that would have been appropriate there. Two things to note. First is I'm a little bit sick, so if there's any coughing or spluttering and a bit more silences and I sound a bit nasally, that is the reason why. Please excuse me for that. And the second is I wanted to get your thoughts on direction of the book reviews podcast / audio / video, which is one of the things I've been doing recently because my reading volume has been quite a lot lower is I've been doing book reviews of old books. So these are books that I've read more than 2 years ago, previous to the channel actually starting. And typically what I do, and you'll see this twice for the book reviews that I did this month, which was I will get an old book, I'll sort of skim over it, read it, portions of it, but not the whole thing, and look at my old book reviews that I used to write down in an Excel sheet, and then just add some additional commentary and sort of reinvigorate it from what I remember. So if I could get your thoughts on that, that would be excellent. Is that ethical thing? Is that something that you want, or would you prefer me to just do book reviews that I have read in this previous month and either up my reading volume or perhaps make the book review podcasts more fortnightly or something like that? The best way to do that would be to send in a Boostagram. So Boostagram is a message with Satoshis attached to it. You can do this in any of the actual podcasting apps, newpodcastapps.com. And this is the way that I'm trying to go with all of my podcasts, all of my shows. I can't continue this on forever without receiving some sort of monetary income coming in, and I absolutely hate the advertising model, and you will never see ads on any of these shows or me shilling or me putting up a paywall or anything like that. And so the only way I see around this is that I need to use the value for value model, which is essentially I spend a lot of time doing these book reviews, doing the research, actually reading the books, condensing it, making the video and audio, and et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, I would really appreciate it if you could send some of that back to me. So if you're watching via YouTube or video, hey, I would appreciate you taking the extra steps to go elsewhere and to go to one of the podcasting apps and just boost us there, or potentially even just going to our website, which I believe will soon have the capability to just click on the Boostagram. That's meremortalspodcast.com. But in any case, that's the best way to get in touch. But I also appreciate comments in wherever you want to leave it. So that's enough on that. Let's get into the actual books that I read of this month. So the first was Influence by Robert Cialdini. I gave this an 8.5 out of 10. This was the first of the books that I had previously read. And I would say that I read this right about 2013, somewhere like that. So quite a long time ago, almost a decade ago. And I had, it left quite a strong impression on me in that time. And this was particularly useful to me because I was trying to learn more about, I suppose, game, which is presenting yourself to women in the best light possible. And this book was mostly on marketing, which, sort of has some aspects to that where it was how can you influence people? How can you get people to see your desirable qualities that you have? And then you form some sort of exchange from that, whether that be sex or a partnership or a friendship or, in his case, in this book, he was talking mostly about advertising and things like this. All of these aspects play into it, or sales, for example. One of the things that I mostly noted from this was how ratings change over time. So this left a huge impression on me at the time. I sort of gave it an 8.5 now, re-reviewing it. But I could definitely see this in the future where this was probably the first time I'd heard a lot of the ideas in this book related to the, what did he call it? Those many different influences or stages, the core precepts, I guess, of how to influence people. I've come across this in elsewhere now, so it's not such a revolutionary idea. At the time, I thought, wow, this is the first time I've ever heard of this. This guy's a genius, etc., etc. Now it's like, oh, okay, these are precepts and principles that, you can find in many other places as well. So it's not just Robert Cialdini who came up with this. So it did get me thinking like, oh yeah, my ratings of books can probably change over time. So I wouldn't be surprised if this book became a 7 or something even lower in the future, just because I've heard so much elsewhere on these same principles where it's like, it's sort of been diluted, I guess. And then you look at the work for what it is, and yeah, sure, it has a lot of stories and cool things in it, but it's almost like the more books I read, the lower that every individual rating of a book is going to get, just because I've read so much more, and the ideas, it gets more down to the writing style then, and the uniqueness of the book. And to be fair, I wouldn't say this book was revolutionary in writing techniques or anything like that. It's just a well-presented book. So in any case, I do highly recommend it for those who are interested in sales and marketing, and who want to learn more about how to influence people and how people influence you. So the next one is The Trial by Franz Kafka. I gave this an 8 out of 10. And funnily enough, same sort of, this was actually a slightly different one, in the case that when I read it at the time, I read this probably about 3 years ago, I would say, 2019. And this one I had previously given a rating, I'd say, of like a 5 out of 10. But the more I reflect on it over the past couple of years, the more I think, man, there was something deep in that. That was that the writing style, first of all, is amazing. The absurdity of this guy who's fighting a trial, an accusation that can't be named, that has no source of information, where he's constantly going around from place to place trying to find out and defend himself against it, is so unique. I really love that. And I think there's many allegories that you could sort of take from it. Initially, I thought it was somewhat linked to depression or something like that, as in when someone who is trapped in a depressive spiral, they constantly like go inwards and inwards, and they try and fight this thing where they, why am I so depressed? Oh, it's because I'm such a loser. And it sort of compounds upon itself until it can reach a breaking point right at the end, such as what happened in the book with Joseph K. But yeah, it was. I just saw that and I was like, man, you could apply a lot of, I think, different things in your life and apply it to this book and sort of see a similar vein. So the psychology of it, of the main character, and the actions that he took, and the situations, the conversations that he had, I thought were all just quite unique. So I actually, upon reflection, bumped that rating up quite a lot over time. And I do believe that I said I would maybe read out what I had actually thought about this in the initial section, or this is going to be hard to find right in the moment. But yeah, my initial thoughts on it were just a little bit blasé, a little bit meh, and now looking upon it, I go, oh yeah, that was a decent book. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to find that right in the moment. That's okay. The next book, The Most Good You Can Do by Peter Singer. So this is related to effective altruism. And I took a lot of notes from this one, so this is probably going to be a slightly longer section. So I'll try and get through it relatively quickly. So some of the things I felt like it was a bit of a hardline approach, so making excuses for failing. So you could sort of say, oh, maybe my kid would bring out greater benefit to the world. So if I don't donate to charity, but instead invest all of that energy into my kid, then maybe this would happen. And he used a lot of those arguments in the book. So it was sort of like, I'll earn a lot of money. I've got career choices. How can I do the best in the world? I could go to a charity and work hard for them and, go directly to Africa and have a direct impact. Or I could become a financial banker and make all of this money. And then as long as I donate 10% of that money, because I'm earning so much more, I'll do so much more good in the world. I thought that thinking was just not adequate enough, because, one, you're assuming that that future you is going to donate that money, that you will do that. I think that's a little bit of a gray area. And then it's also not looking at the impacts of, what is your work actually harming the world? I would argue that financial bankers and those sort of people, they're not really, they don't have that physical, tangible benefit of really making a difference in the world if you're making money off derivatives or on the micro adjustments in the corn trade and et cetera, et cetera. Maybe if you're a financial trader related to charities or something like that, maybe, but I thought it was just a way of sort of shifting responsibility onto future you and being like, oh, this person will do all the good, and not making potential benefits now. So that sort of section, I wasn't a big of a fan of, which was funny because simultaneously I got from the book, there was almost an insistence that it needs to be done here and now. Like there's no point talking and just chatting about doing good. It's like, think about it right now, put it into action, put it into place. The ideal is ideal, but you can do sub-ideal, just do something, and I quite like that. I just felt that running throughout the book, and I do appreciate that sort of insistence, that almost that physicality. It's not all in your head of thinking about doing good and ideals and philosophy and things like that. It's an implementation into the real world. So it's kind of funny because those two don't really mix and match so much. When I was reading it, I found I had almost like a deep misgiving. If you look at the podcast episode I did with Juan, what episode was that? If you type in Peter Singer into our podcast search engine on our website, you'll be able to find out which one it was. And there was something, he had the same sort of reaction, which was just like an instant ethics into action, effective altruism, this, sort of insistence that you donate in this sort of way. And if you're donating to a charity because it has more of a sentimental value, that's not good enough in essence. And I guess it's sort of the implication that, you're doing something bad in a way, even when you're trying to be doing something good, which people do not want to feel. If you're donating to charity, you want the good feelings coming from that. Whereas this sort of book is saying, nah, not good enough. You need to think a bit harder and think a bit better. So I can sort of see that. And it was kind of like watching my own reaction made me realize maybe I'm not as utilitarian as I thought I was. So utilitarian is sort of the philosophy of doing the most good, I guess you could say, in the moment, and looking at things more quantitatively. So if you look at the trolley problem, utilitarian, so that's a train's coming down the tracks, it's going to run over 5 people on the track it's on, and if you pull a lever, it'll go and kill 1 person instead. Utilitarians would go, okay, 5 lives is better than 1 life, pull the lever, squish. And I would have said I was more along the lines of that, but after reading this book, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure anymore. So that's something I need to have a little bit more of a look into as well. There was a question, I suppose, that kind of got raised was, what is good? And this wasn't made super clear in the book. And is it greater happiness or reduced suffering? So his argument seemed to be related towards more alleviating suffering, and that your suffering pales in comparison to others, and that's why you should donate, I suppose, to more effective charities, because then you're making the world a better place because there's less suffering. Whereas greater happiness is also on this spectrum in the up ways rather than in the down ways. And this also implies that everyone is equal, and this is a tough one because by most rights, yes, most rights everyone is equal and should get fair treatment and whatnot. with regards to voting, with regards to human rights and things like that. But when it comes to donation and charities, that's when I'm like, okay, I'm not so sure that everyone is equal when it implies an act of giving as well. When everyone should be treated the same, yes, but when it's an actual donation, I'm not so sure of that. Another thing I need to think over a bit more. You can definitely see a skill and time spent in creating the book. Every point that Juan came up, here we go, in episode 295 of the Mere Mortals, he pretty much addressed, which was pretty funny. So it was watching Juan come up with an argument and then me just saying, he already thought of that. Nah, Peter already talked about that in the book. So the one thing that I thought would be cool was a meta study on the effectiveness of effective altruism. So is the movement itself actually producing greater benefits to the world? And so are people donating harder, better, faster, stronger, like the Kanye West Daft Punk sort of mean? So that I think that would be, if I had the chance to chat with Peter Singer, I would actually really want to ask him about that. Is effective altruism actually effective in its goals? Are people changing their habits, their styles? Has there been a study done on that? Because so much of the effective altruism movement is about seeing effectiveness. So that would be kind of cool. Let's move on to something else. So this is The Idiot by Dostoevsky, Fyodor Dostoevsky. I gave a 6.5 out of 10. Not too much to add to this other than it's a big book. It's a really big book. And one thing I could probably say, which I didn't mention, was there's quite a lot of modern language in it. So I remember there were scenes where he was saying, this would be the prince, and he was talking about Rogozin, something like that. I can't remember how to pronounce all these damn Russian names. And he was saying like, after he met her, he's like, he's going to knife her, which I thought was, oh man, that sounds pretty modern, knifing someone. I hadn't particularly read or heard of that phrase in other places. Kind of sounds gangster in a way. Another was when they were talking about money, and he was just like, oh yeah, that's a cool 100,000 rubles. Once again, it's just like, whoa, what? The word cool? That's pretty modern. And it was funny seeing that in a book which is, from the 1880s, something like that. That was when it came out. So yeah, seeing modern language being introduced into a book that I know is quite old was kind of funny in a way. I enjoyed it. I think I approve of that, and mostly just because it's a translation, so it's gonna be a little bit iffy anyways. And when you translate from another language, you're gonna lose something anyway. So I don't mind if something is added to that as well, put into it. So I'm okay with that in the translation process, and I appreciate what the translator did there. The other one was Ippolit. So this was the atheist in the book, and there sort of seems to be something about very sick characters, or characters who are on their deathbed, or who have endured a lot of suffering, to have a lot of wisdom in a way. And his sort of wisdom from his sickness reminded me a lot of Ralph Touchet from The Portrait of a Lady, which I've also covered on this channel. And this was where, right at the start, Ralph was talking with, what was her name? It was the main girl in the book, and he was chatting with her, and she was talking about the ghost in this house. And he's like, yeah, like, you haven't seen the ghost, and you don't want to see the ghost. The ghost is reserved for those who've endured and suffered a lot. And this is sort of a metaphor. They're not talking about an actual ghost. They're talking about the wisdom, I guess, you get from being near death, and from the learnings that the perspective that can give you in life, I guess, and suffering and whatnot. And Ippolit seemed to have a bit of this. Now, the difference was he was quite young as well, so this got mixed up with all of these ideals and just, I suppose, a bad presentation style. He was very dramatic and, try to kill himself, and then would bother people and not be kind to people, and et cetera, et cetera. So there was a bit of a mixing with unsavory characteristics with him as well. But it did get me thinking a lot about just sickness and death, and whether there is wisdom that can be gained from such intense suffering. And I imagine there is. And, just for my part, I really hope I don't have to see the ghost myself, because I'm curious about things, but I'll admit that my will is not super strong. I'm not the person. There's this lady called, oh man, my brain's not working today. There was a Toria Pitt, I believe was her name, who got trapped in bushfires here in Australia, and she was on an ultra marathon, and she basically had to run her way out of a bushfire whilst her sort of skin was melting off of her. And I think about that situation, and I just think, I don't think I've got that will to survive. Maybe the instincts and the adrenaline will kick in and something like that, but I'm not sure I have the will to endure so much suffering. I think there's a point where I would give up, and I think I would give up quicker than a lot of people. But this is once again one of those situations where it's like, I don't want to find out. I don't want to know if I have that will or not. So yeah, that sort of wisdom can be kept for others if possible. If possible, please, universe. Let's jump onto the Boostagram Lounge now. So what I can say from here is that there was 3 boosts that came in, and I'm just bringing it up as we speak. And one of the cool things was, this is both good and bad. One is I've really only got one booster in, so there's really only one person supporting the show at the moment, which is, of course, the ever-present Peter the Slav. Peter, thank you so much, mate. I really, really do appreciate it. But that's on me as well. I need to promote the show more, to get more people in, to make this show better, so that more people can partake as well. So one of the cool things is, though, there was someone called @FollowReason who didn't send any boosts, but they streamed, and they streamed 570 sats. And I don't know how much they've listened to related to that, but that was really cool. If that's Peter, you again, mate. Mate, that's too much. But it's kind of cool to see that other people are joining in on this process. And so once again, value for value, go to one of the new podcastapps.com. Fountain is one that I highly recommend because I put up chapter images. I believe Cast-O-Matic, you can see them also in Podverse, actually in pretty much all of them, Curiocaster and in Breeze. So I would just say go to one of these ones which have chapter images, because I really do try and add that extra little bit of spice into this as well, so you can have a little bit of a visualization. And so this gets to one of the main points here, that Peter sends in 3,166 sats. All of these are sent using Fountain. And he says, "Is your marionette a wand doll? Haha, nice." Yes, it is, my friend. Yes, it is. So that was on the cover art for the what do you call it? The influence book, where it was me manipulating a marionette wand. Yeah, those fun little touches. I like that. Here he says, another 3,166. "I've always held the weird belief that when one stumbles across an unsolvable paradox in life, you always should pay extra attention to that thing. Unsolvable paradoxes form the fundamental basis of our reality and often can teach us things about the universe. I know what you're thinking, and no, I'm not high at the moment." Smiley face. And this was related to The Trial by Franz Kafka. You bang on, Peter. We're two alike, mate. It's almost like my life is now becoming the point of just trying to find these instances of paradox and work them out for myself, and just spend more time deliberating on them, looking at them, thinking about them. How can these two things be true at the same time? What does that mean? What does that say about myself as well? If can I simultaneously in my brain accept these two things as well? So this is why I love books like The Trial by Franz Kafka, because it sort of addresses that. It gets to it. So yeah, man, whether you're high or not, it's a good thing to ponder. And the last one here from Peter is the idiot. I feel like I can relate. Man, I'm literally wearing the Hosky shirt as we speak right now. So the greatest idiot here is got to be, like, it's got to be me, right? But I think there's well, it's funny because, even though the Prince Mishkin is called an idiot throughout the book, he is the most respected and revered character. Now, his fatal flaw is, of course, that he's got a sort of underlying sickness, and like I was talking about with naivety in that book review, I don't think it alleviates the responsibility of thinking about your actions and being pragmatic as well, about thinking about the outcomes. So it's funny because the idiot is a weird insult, because you'd say it's related to IQ, for example, whereas in the book he wasn't an idiot. I believe, I don't know what my IQ is, but I think it's above the normal because I've got a sort of engineering degree, and I used to do okay at that, and I did good at science and maths, but I do think I'm an idiot at the same time. And once again, paradox just there. What is the meaning of the word idiot? And I kind of like it, to be honest. I enjoy it. I think there's something, there's almost like something fun in it. And as long as I'm being responsible as well, once again, being responsible, but also being foolish and carefree, that mix and balance, where do you find that? Where's the paradox in that? So thank you very much, Peter, and also at Follow Reason, who streamed in some sats. Very cool of both of you, and people leaving comments on the channel as well. Much appreciated. I enjoyed going over those. So the last section here that we have is what is coming up for ding 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 ding. What's the next month? June of 2022. What is it? Well, look, at least I got finished The Idiot, which I have been saying I've been reading for ages, and it did take me ages, like 650 pages or whatnot. I'm still reading Reasons and Persons by Derek Parfit. I'm on page 261. The book says that it has 539 pages, but a bunch of that is the appendix and whatnot. So I've probably got I still got a lot. 240 pages. Yeah, so I'm about halfway through at the moment. It's a hard book. I'm finding less and less enjoyment to it. I'm struggling as to whether I should continue reading all of it, which I have been doing. I think I've only skipped over maybe 1 or 2 pages. But it's becoming a grind now. One thing I'm mostly finished is Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert. I don't know how you pronounce his French name. Been enjoying this one. I might have another. So the Reasons and Persons book. Once again, I can't guarantee I'll finish that this month. Juan says he has finished a bunch of books because he hasn't done a book review lately. So imagine that some of his will be appearing on the channel. And I've got some smaller books as well, maybe a Spanish translation or one written in Spanish by would be one of the Mario Vargas Llosa or someone like that. And I might have another Kafka book to read. So we'll see. But once again, I'm like I mentioned, my reading is sort of taking second priority to a lot of other things at the moment. So I'm not going super hard at it like I used to. But what you gonna do? So that's it for today. Thank you everyone for joining in. Once again, encouraging you to send a Boostagram. That is my favorite thing, the direct interaction with the audience. That this is my favorite section to riff on the Boostagrams at the end. So thank you very much, Peter, for doing that. And thank you, everyone, for joining to me at this point, if you've reached it this far of, once again, a long recap. So very good. That's it for today. Peace out. Ay, ay, ay.